hadn't ordered anything, yet there it was, an Easter basket, resting neatly on my front steps as though left by invisible hands. It was too early for Easter, and besides, I lived alone, deep in the forest, far from any town or neighbor. No one should have known I was here. I brought it inside cautiously. The bright, synthetic grass inside shimmered under the weak morning light, but nestled within, instead of candy or chocolate, sat something that made my skin crawl. A single, oversized eye, not a fake one. This was no novelty. It was slick to the touch, soft yet firm, threaded with tiny red veins that twitched when I touched them. It looked disturbingly real, alive even. I dropped the lid shut, heart hammering in my chest. My hands shook as I shoved the basket aside, scattering bills and old envelopes across the counter. Who could have sent this? Why here? Why me? I had come to this cabin for peace. It belonged to a distant aunt I barely knew, Elspeth, a name barely remembered from whispers at family funerals. After everything I'd been through, this place was meant to be a refuge, a place to disappear, to escape from the memories that haunted every corner of my old life. But now the sanctuary felt invaded. The plastic grass rustled faintly in the still air as though it were breathing. Easter wasn't for another 3 days. I couldn't help but see the cruel irony. A holiday meant for joy and rebirth, now reduced to a symbol of something I couldn't understand. The grief I'd carried here had been heavy enough. This felt like a cruel game. All day, the basket lingered on the counter like a corpse left out in the open. I tried to ignore it, diving into pointless chores, cleaning spotless shelves, unpacking boxes full of old lace doilies and faded photographs. The wallpaper, once floral, now seemed alive with wriggling shapes when caught in the corner of my eye. And the smell, there was something foul hiding in the air. Not quite rot, not quite flowers. A sickly mix that clung to the back of my throat. As the sun dipped behind the treetops and the woods turned dark and whispering, new sounds crept in. Soft scrapes, like claws against wood, came from within the walls. Then something knocked outside. Not a knock, really, more like a soft thump, then again, and again. Thump, 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 not loud, almost playful. I stepped toward the door, legs stiff with dread. Looking through the peephole revealed nothing, just the silhouettes of trees and the deepening dusk. But the sound was closer now, right on the other side. I forced myself to look again. First, nothing. Then I noticed it, tucked against the doorframe, nearly hidden in the gloom. A single Easter egg, pale pink, too pink, like chewed bubble gum or spoiled medicine. I backed away instantly, chilled to the bone. This wasn't a prank. It was a message, the kind I didn't want to understand. That night brought no sleep. I drifted in and out of nightmares where the eye floated in darkness, growing larger, its pupil expanding until it swallowed the world. My dreams echoed with the same soft thump-thump, like a rabbit's frantic heartbeat. Fast, desperate, cursed. Morning brought no comfort. It was Good Friday, and the eggs multiplied. One was inside my boot, another balanced on the bathroom mirror, two perfectly placed to be accidental. Each one was colored wrong, flesh tones, bruised blues, bile yellows, all of them ice cold and too heavy for their size. I collected them with kitchen tongs and dropped them into a metal pail. My plan was to bury them deep in the woods. But as I stared out the window, the trees seemed closer. Their branches scratched the glass like fingernails, and I felt it eyes watching, always watching. I began locking and relocking every window, every door. Logic told me this was stress, that maybe I was slipping again. But the evidence said otherwise. In the attic, desperate for answers, I found a dusty old photo album. Tucked inside was a child's drawing, crude and unsettling. A tall, hunched rabbit with twisted ears stood beside a crying child. It held a brightly colored egg in one clawed hand. The forest around them was drawn like teeth, jagged and closing in. At the bottom, scrawled in shaky crayon, were the words, "The Easter man sees." A chill far deeper than the attic stale air crept down my back as I stared at those words. The Easter man sees, not the bunny, Not some cartoon mascot. The Easter Man. Even the name felt unnatural. Like something ancient wearing a mask made of pastel. I tried to convince myself it was just a child's imagination, a drawing born from nightmares. But in my gut, I knew better. The name carried weight, dread. That night, the walls seemed to come alive. The earlier faint scratching had grown into loud, frenzied scrapes. Something bigger now, moving fast, not inside the walls, within them. And then, the whispering started. It was barely audible at first, but the more I tried to ignore it, the clearer it became. A distorted, broken murmur, like breath slipping between teeth. I couldn't understand the words, if they were words at all, but I felt their meaning. Hunger, invitation, possession. Panic overtook reason. I grabbed my keys and bolted for the door, and stopped. The porch, it was covered. Eggs. Dozens, maybe 100, coated in sickly yellows, bruised purples, and that nauseating pink. They formed a spiral on the boards, winding in from the forest to my door like a grotesque breadcrumb trail. At the center sat the same wicker basket, but the lid now lay open. The eye was gone. My breath stuttered in my throat. I scanned the porch, the woods, the edges of shadow, but there was nothing, just the eggs, just the silence. No, not silence. The whispering was louder now, swirling around me in the open air like flies buzzing just out of sight. And the smell, sweet and spoiled, like lilies left too long in the sun. I backed up, slammed the door shut, and locked every bolt with shaking hands. It had taken the eye back, or perhaps it had never left at all. Maybe it was just waiting. That night was worse. I stayed on the living room couch, clutching a fireplace poker like it could somehow protect me from whatever was outside or inside. Every creak became a threat, every flicker of shadow a movement. I tried calling Dr. Eris, no dial tone. The line was dead. Of course it was. I was alone. Saturday passed in fragments. No new eggs appeared, but that didn't bring relief. The silence was heavier now, expectant. The scratching had stopped, but in its place came another sound. Tapping on the windows, light, rhythmic, like someone or something was trying to get my attention. I didn't look, couldn't. I covered the bathroom window with loose planks from the shed, hammering each nail like it was my heartbeat. I could feel the thing watching me as I worked. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Elspeth's drawing. The tall rabbit, the crying child, the Easter man sees. Had she drawn herself? Was this her memory, her nightmare? Or was it her warning? I had to know. I returned to the attic, ripping through every box I hadn't yet opened. Moth-eaten linens, dusty knickknacks, brittle newspapers. And then I found it. A leather-bound diary. Elspeth's. Her early entries were mundane, weather updates, recipes, musings on solitude. But as the pages turned, so did her sanity. Every year, around spring, the entries shifted, became frantic, unstable. She wrote of gifts appearing on her porch, of colors that looked wrong, of a figure at the edge of the woods, too tall, too still, ears too long. She wrote of scratching, of whispers, of something that watched and waited. One entry chilled me to the core. It comes with the thaw, pretending to be rebirth, but it's older than any spring. It doesn't celebrate life, it takes it. It left an egg, blue, heavy. I think something's inside. Later, it's closer this year. I saw its face in the window's reflection. All teeth, hollow eyes. It mimics kindness, but it only knows hunger. And then the last one, dated Easter Sunday, 1978. It found the loose board. It's in. So many fingers, so many colors. Happy as. The ink trailed off into a broken smear. My mouth went dry. This wasn't in my head. I wasn't unraveling. It had happened before. To her. I scanned the attic floor with growing terror. The loose board. Which one? Where? Then, downstairs. A sound. Not from the walls. From the floor below. A slow, deliberate scrape. Then thump. Something had been placed down. Clutching the diary to my chest, poker raised, I crept down the attic stairs. The air felt charged. alive. Each step creaked like a scream. The silence was wrong, holding its breath. I reached the bottom step, and I heard it again. Thump, thump, thump. I peeked around the corner, heart pounding, breath shallow. There, in the center of the room, bathed in the ghostly light of the moon slipping through the grime-caked window, sat an Easter egg. But not like any I'd seen before. It was massive, taller than a toddler, nearly 3 feet in height. Its shell rippled with sickly pastel colors, melting into each other like spoiled candy. Rosy pinks, feverish blues, jaundiced yellows. The scent wafting from it wasn't sweet. It was too sweet, like something dead dressed in perfume. Cloying, overripe, wrong. Then a crack. It started at the top and zigzagged downward with a brittle crunch. Another one splintered across its side. Then another. The egg trembled slightly, like something inside was shifting. Something alive. The scraping sound returned, louder, now unmistakably coming from within. It was joined by a wet, tearing noise, like flesh being peeled back slowly. The cracks widened. The shell sagged inward as if struggling to contain what writhed behind it. I should have moved, should have smashed it, but I couldn't. I was frozen in place, a terrified spectator to my own undoing. A piece of the shell collapsed inward, revealing something dark, glistening. A limb emerged, long, pale, grotesquely jointed. Its fingers were thin and far too long, tipped with yellow claws that scraped along the floor with surgical precision. Another limb followed, then finally the head. It resembled a rabbit, but only in the most monstrous, distorted sense. The skull stretched unnaturally long, patches of colorless fur clinging to it like moss to bone. Its ears twitched violently, torn and jagged like ancient leather, and the face, or what should have been a face, was empty, hollow. Black sockets where eyes should be, leaking a slow, tar-like pus. And yet, it saw me. It knew me. Its grin spread impossibly wide, lined with teeth too sharp, too many, too hungry. The Easter man had arrived. It dragged itself fully from the egg, its frame gaunt and impossibly tall. Its limbs jerked unnaturally, like a puppet with broken strings. Its patchy, corpse fur skin was half covered by scraps of pastel cloth fused to flesh. It moved toward me, chose me, then the whisper. No longer vague or formless, it had a voice now, dry, splintered, ancient. Found you. It reached out, and in its bony palm sat the eye from the basket, pulsed, waiting. A gift. That's when instinct broke the spell. I turned and ran, tripping over myself as I fled toward the kitchen. I reached the back door, locked. No, boarded. From outside. I had done that. My own hands had sealed my fate. I turned. It stood in the doorway, filling it, the silhouette monstrous, grinning, dripping. Time for the hunt. It leapt. I swung the poker. Metal met something solid. A dry crack, but the creature barely reacted. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist with ice-cold strength. I screamed, struggled, but it reeled me in like a hooked fish. His face neared mine. Closer, closer. I stared into those empty eye sockets and saw colors, pastel colors, swirling and spinning like a whirlpool made of sugar and madness. They consumed everything. And just before my world went under, it lifted its other hand, holding the eye inches from my face. Rebirth. They found me wandering down a highway, barefoot, dirt-smeared, whispering about eggs that watched and colors that screamed. I don't remember walking. I don't remember leaving. Weeks passed in a quiet room. Soft walls. Soft voices. Dr. Eris called it a break. A psychotic fracture brought on by grief. Medication helped dull the edges. But never enough. Because the spring never left. Not inside me. Now I live in a colorless world. A tiny apartment in a nameless city. Everything is gray. By choice. No Easter decorations, no flowers, no pastels. But the color finds me. A pink flower box on a neighbor's windowsill. A child's chalk drawing on the sidewalk. A robin's egg sky that turns my stomach. Sometimes I stare at it too long. Too hard. because somewhere under the fear is something else. Recognition. I avoid mirrors now. Sometimes I see things in reflections that don't move when I do. Faces too long, eyes too dark. I haven't bought eggs, but I still find them, hidden in shoes, slipped into coat pockets, resting silently beside my bed, each one perfect, cold, and painted in soft, sickening colors. I throw them away, but I know it doesn't matter, because spring has come again. And this time I saw it first, through a bakery window. A marzipan egg, veinous blue, familiar. I stared, smiled. I didn't mean to, because deep down, I know the truth. The Easter man doesn't hunt just once. Rebirth is slow, and I'm almost ready to accept the gift